Welcome back to Horses of Courses. I'm Tinia.
I'm Suzanna.
And we are bringing this, it's our 6th episode. We are a
Wait,
half a year.
happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
What'd you bring me?
Moonshine.
I don't like moonshine.
No, you won't even want any.
That's like an old married couple. Bring me something I don't like for my anniversary. Thanks.
That's like the peanut butter you sent me.
You did like that.
I haven't gotten it yet.
Well, that's your fault.
No, that's your fault.
It's really Amazon's fault or UPS or somebody.
So Suzanna and I are here in Paris, Kentucky. We have driven near here many times. We've never been here in Paris. If you've never
always wanted
been
to go to Paris.
France.
Yeah.
Same.
I don't know. This place is kind of cute.
This place has been cute, but we are in kind of a bit of a sketchy hotel. It's a Best Western.
I've been at the goat conference with you and worse.
But so my question is, a motel? We're in a motel, right?
Is the Best Western a motel?
If you come in and it's like the entrance is in the exterior, it's a motel, I think. And a hotel, the entrance is in the interior.
But it's not called Best Western Motel, is it?
It doesn't, but motel and hotel are defined not by the brand, but by the process by which you enter. And this is an exterior door to the outside.
Well, that's fine. We'll get out quicker in a fire.
It's a little tiny bit sketchy, but relatively clean. Somebody did put some aluminum foil over the smoke detector because I presume they were smoking in here. And it smells a bit like they were. And I hear some weird people out there wandering around on the terrace. But anyway, Paris, Kentucky overall has been cute. And the land in Kentucky is beautiful. And I hadn't seen this particular land.
Did you just say we're in Paris with people on the terrace?
No, but we are in Paris. And people are on the terrace. But if they saw that terrace... It's like we're not
like a terrace in Paris.
It is certainly not. Anyway, so we are here in town with Nelson, Susanna. We're in this area working on. I'm not doing much work, but
I was running back and forth getting waters.
I have filmed some.
Oh boy!
But Nelson's working on moving this presumed, alleged Andalusian cross stallion, and he was pretty nasty today.
Well, he was.
He was. Working on moving him, doing some work to get him ready to, hopefully at the end of tomorrow, go to Nelson's, get some more work, get castrated, and find a trainer.
Not tomorrow, though. We're not castrating him tomorrow at Nelson's.
But
that'd be a lot of magic.
Get the work to head that direction. So, and my fear was this horse was going to be like 13.2.
He's definitely not.
He's not. He's a big horse, and when I would see him in person, he would look like a Tennessee Walker or something
he
gated.
Doesn't look
or
like that either.
But he actually does look like he could be an Andalusian cross. He's a good size. He moves pretty. He doesn't look like an aged horse. So I was disappointed to see the hot brand because it makes you think there's some background there that could have some baggage, but overall, he was what we kind of had in our mind we were hoping we would find. So we're going to call him Slate. Which was...
But he's not quite a blank slate.
He is certainly not. We were like putting that out there in all kinds of hopes. And interestingly enough, some trainers that I don't know if it'll end up working out, but some of the trainers I really, really like have messaged and said, oh, well, I'm interested. I'm like, well, this is kind of, we get a lot of horses that need a lot of help, but, as a trainer, if you're in the industry, you kind of know certain horses have more of a chance of piquing interest and being a challenge and being interesting to document. So Noah T.Y. from Steady Horse did say he was tempted, and Kevin Graham,
yes,
he said his term was, what did he say? He said, I'm tempted. And then Justin Hafner in Virginia, who had Scotty in the ATFO some years back.
But he's not in Virginia now. Didn't he move to West Virginia?
I think he moved to West Virginia, his new facility. It's right on the border, if not Charlestown maybe, or right there on the border. He's talking to me about it. So I I think that sort of thing, it does tell you when you have people that work in the industry and they make their living this way, you do have to consider, how marketable is a horse? How challenging is the horse? How far can you bring the horse? And how engaged will a follower base be? So
I
this
feel
guy,
like this fellow would get lots of engagement no matter who he went to, really.
well, I think he would, but seeing him today with Nelson, you definitely could tell that this horse is not for most trainers.
I don't want to train him.
He looks, I think he's going to be an upper level horse, and somebody has to have dealt with stallions and some aggression and certainly ferals, and those can come in, like you can have one that has this portion and not the other two elements, but you need to have done all of those. And so I am currently super thrilled that those three trainers are talking about it. And if it works out, great. What I would love to happen is all three say they want him. And I'll be like, submit a
Eeny,
video.
meeny, miny, mo.
No, submit a training video and let us review.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you would.
Submit a training video. So, with that said, there's a little bit more we want to talk about later on in the episode in regards to ferals and that horse. But recently, we have gone through a lot of horses for the ATFO pickup, and different horses have come in, and we've seen a need to address equine dentistry.
Yes.
And I think even Suzanna and I feel a little different about this. I don't know for sure, but I am very, very firm on a horse being sedated with a power float. And I think that Suzanna has felt like she's had some good results without those specific parameters.
Well, because Rude and Riddle confirmed that that was a good job. But also, I can't get that near my house. So.
Well, but also, you never know if the horses had true issues you were trying to address, right? If like maybe their teeth were pretty good, maybe there was just basic things being done. But when you don't know, is there something significant? I guess those are variables we don't know. Or were those horses you had a background on where you knew there was really bad stuff already in the mouth before?
No, they were just maintenance floats, really.
So I think
yes, your mare, because he worked on your mare 3 times in that 1 year.
But we don't know that would she have needed three floats had she been sedated and been able to have a power float. So I think we just don't know on that.
I don't know. All I know is he opened her mouth and he said, well, this is very bad.
But I think certainly who you were using when people looked at the mouths after, they weren't causing an issue, whatever that was, whether their teeth, whatever that was.
When Dr. Walker did your mare afterwards, did he go, wow, this is a terrible job? Because he did your mare after Aiden did him 3 times.
Yeah,
but you remember.
So,
if he
so
said
she's
that, you
16
remember.
now, and that was when she was 7. At the end of it, 8, so it's just been too many years.
If he'd have opened her mouth and said, "This is a terrible job. Who's been doing this?"
No,
you'd have remembered and
no,
crowed
I don't
about
think
it.
I don't think he caused any issues. He couldn't have, but he didn't. Well, he didn't. That doesn't mean he couldn't have. Like, I don't think she needed a lot of work. But what I mean is, there was no reference to, oh, this horse has a huge wave mouth, or extractions are needed, or there's steps in the mouth. You know what I mean? I'm talking like really significant stuff that because of how far along it's gone, you can't correct. But regardless of whether they sedate or they use a power float, I think we can both agree they need a speculum.
Yes.
That's 100% a speculum. And the number of people who float without a speculum is shocking.
That's wild.
But
don't make them think that I'm against power floating or sedation.
No, I'm just saying you happen to have somebody who didn't do those things.
Well, I'm very rural. Rural. That's a word that's hard for me to say like you.
Rural. I just say rural. Just say rural. Don't say rural.
I'm very far out in the middle of nowhere.
I'm rural.
Rural.
So
I'm royal. That's what that sounds like.
I print screened a comment from somebody who has been a page follower. She was like originally a follower on my farm page, and she's moved over to like the rescue page and my personal page. And this, I thought, what did you read what I sent about the
don't know.
float?
You sent me 50 comments in the past 3 days.
No, this was today. It was so sad. She had an old Shetland pony, and she had
Oh, yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah. And she put it to sleep, and its mouth was terrible.
Yeah, but she said the vet every year would come and charge her an exorbitant amount of money to float and
Yes.
say her mouth is good for a Shetland pony. And the
That's
pony would
so
still,
sad.
yeah, and the pony would drop feed.
Drop feed and grind
And
its teeth
yes,
funny. That was so
when
sad.
she put her to sleep, I think she was like 26 years old.
Which is really
And
not old for a
a
Shetland
Shetland
pony.
pony. And
They
she
live to be
said,
45.
and she said that she kept skulls as a decorative piece in her garden. And that may sound a little weird to you all, but I actually keep skulls too, so fine.
You're a little weird.
I keep my goat skulls.
You're a little
Sometimes
weird.
the dogs go up to the barn and they get the skulls,
Oh my
and they come
gosh.
back down and they have and I'm like, oh my gosh, you have Moses. You've got to, here, let me have his skull and take it back to the barn. So, but anyway, she said she put the skull in the garden and got to wondering about her teeth, and she started looking, and she said she knew when she looked at the teeth how much pain that pony had been
I
in
know
for so
that
many
was
years.
sad.
And that to me, that kind of summarized, I think, what's happening to a lot of people. And it's not to be negative toward veterinarians or dentists. It's to be negative toward people who aren't doing a good job, which whatever you're
And we
doing.
get so much pushback on that because they're like, well, I had him floated. And we're like, yeah, but did you have him floated by somebody good? Yeah, my vet did it. Okay, but was your
Did
vet
they use a
any
speculum? No. How did they tell you that the teeth were fine? Oh, they moved its jaw back and forth without opening its mouth. And did you put your hand in after the horse was floated to see how did it feel to you? And you may feel like you don't know enough. Let me tell you what, if you put your hand in the mouth of a horse with a speculum in and it's sedated and you can feel around, you don't have to be a vet to know, oh, this is still really, really, really bad. So what what I stress is, and there's some trainers I've talked about this with, James Berthasol at Smoke Rise Ranch. We had that kind of dialogue. If you don't know enough to know, then who are you to challenge an expert in allegedly in that field? And it's your job to become aware because the horse needs you to do that.
You have to be your horse's advocate.
I mean, you really
Just like
do.
you would be your child's advocate.
Yeah.
You have to be your horse's
I
advocate.
mean, there are plenty of first time parents that find a way if a kid's having an issue to say, I'm not going to accept what's being said here. This is not the right answer. And one thing, our vet, Dr. Walker at Equine Medical Center in Chesapeake, Ohio, he said to me recently, he said, how do I need to report an equine dentist who is causing a lot of damage in the mouths of horses? And he told me, he said there was a specific horse that he went out to and it had a huge pocket in the back of its mouth. He said it was bigger than a softball. The dentist had used a hand float and crushed like the whole back end of the mouth and then broken into the skin and got into the skin to create a pocket.
Gosh.
And he said the damage was incredible and it made him so angry. And
that wasn't his first run-in with that one.
No, that was many times. He said
Yeah.
that was the worst instance. But he said, I need to know how to report this so that this stops. And West Virginia recently, they rescinded the approval for equine dentists who are not veterinarians to practice in West Virginia. But that's not enough because I've had work done by veterinarians on mouths that caused as much damage. So you really do need to remember when you're talking about teeth that the little bit of time a vet may get in school doesn't make them a good equine dentist. And so
but we get it though. It's hard because
it's hard.
It's really hard because you just, not everybody gets thrown into a rescue situation or a public riding stable situation where they get to learn all of these kinds of things because they're exposed to such a wide variety.
Well, and I also will say, it's not that there are horses we've had that we found out after the fact the teeth were done bad, not by who we routinely use, but maybe we used somebody that was recommended and we thought it would be okay and we didn't see any obvious signs, and then we loop around a year later and Dr. Walker's in their mouth and I'm like, oh my God, what's happened in here? So I'll tell you, we had an adopted horse recently, and they had taken the horse pretty local to where we are, and the horse, they had floated the teeth, and the next time they had that vet see the horse, they said it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought the horse to
But
the
the horse
rescue.
was struggling to keep weight on.
Yeah, and they brought the horse to the rescue to have Dr. Walker see her and brand her, because she had been adopted so many years ago. And when he opened her mouth, he said, "I don't believe anyone's ever done this horse's teeth."
Yeah.
And they were horrifying. It was horrifying. And thankfully, this is a horse the adopter does ride bitless, so it was a little bit less trauma, but
Well, not for eating, though.
not for eating, though. I mean, it was really bad. So, it's not to demonize anyone, to say, to make you feel bad, but just be cognizant of the fact you may have someone you really like doing the teeth of your horse who does not do a good job. And teeth are so important. And some people think you don't do young horses' teeth. It is very rare that we have a young horse's teeth checked at a year old that they don't need work, and certainly never at 2. And they say, well, why? The mouth is developing, it's always growing, it's always changing, and the teeth are soft. As a horse gets older, you will find sometimes people really put a focus on floating the old horse's teeth, and that's true, but primarily it's true because they're losing teeth, so that could certainly change the wear pattern. But the teeth become very, very, very hard as a horse gets older. And so if you've always had an excellent dentist or vet doing your horse's teeth through the years, then by the time your horse is 20, unless they're losing teeth, the teeth have gotten hard. And you're probably not going to find as much wrong. But when horses are young, the teeth are soft.
Well, think about Bree. Bree actually choked, and it was really, really bad. And she
was like 6, 7, 8 months old.
Like 7 months old, and we ended up taking her to Root and Riddle, and they're like, "Well, we know why she's choking. Her teeth are absolutely horrible," and she was 7 months old.
I do think it's worth telling you all, Arabians, because they have a small muzzle, they are more apt to have serious issues with their teeth. And then certainly ponies, and especially minis. And minis do need modified tools. They need a speculum for a miniature horse. And they need small tools.
But Bree was a Shetland baby.
Yeah, but if you have a mini, you cannot use regular tools. And I've known vets that were willing to, but you really shouldn't.
Right.
So that's how we feel about.
We beat the teeth to death now.
We beat that to death. Moving on, something that I wish I had known going all the way back to the beginning of rescue is how important vitamin E is. It's something, I don't really know when I realized vitamin E was imperative to be supplemented, but maybe 5 years. It's not even been a terrible amount of years. 5 years, 4 years, maybe not even that long. I mean, 3, maybe 3 years. What was happening is we would see horses come in really thin, or they wouldn't even be necessarily like emaciated, but you would see
just
a lot.
Crappy looking.
They would look not great, and you would know the history was that they had not been on grass, and there was a lot of
weird back end weirdness.
It seemed neurologic, like the back end seemed neurologic. And over time, people would say, well, it's EPM. But every time we would pull a spinal fluid test, the horses wouldn't have EPM. And when we realized that low vitamin E will create neurological symptoms in a horse, and we started thinking about how many horses we receive that are thin or have been on just hay, and you look into how hay doesn't retain much vitamin E, and commercial feeds don't really give you anywhere near the amount of vitamin E you need. If a horse is on pasture throughout the spring, summer, fall, they're going to probably store enough vitamin E, but that's not the place we live. As a rule, the horses we're getting, they're not. So,
well, and commercial feeds do have vitamin E in it, and sometimes it is enough, but the problem is that to be labeled as containing vitamin E, it just has to contain some format of vitamin E. But what horses really need to be able to utilize it and make themselves not have those symptoms is D-alpha tocopherol vitamin E. And that's not necessarily what's in your grain.
Because that's a more expensive version.
Right. But
which is,
they're required to have vitamin E, but it doesn't have to be D-alpha tocopherol vitamin E.
and so we at the rescue for the last probably 2 years, we have supplemented vitamin E virtually year round, especially to horses that are not in the main field. We use Ultra Cruise. When I broke down the cost and the quality and the amount of vitamin E, that came out for us, the vitamin E powder from Ultra Cruise, to be the most economical. We have
This is for horses that really aren't very, very symptomatic, though. That's not what we use to fix them when they're wobbly and EPM looking.
no, for a horse that is symptomatic, we have continually used a liquid form from Elevate.
Right.
And once you have a horse stabilized, you're 2 months in, 3 months in, you can move to a powder form. Now, Elevate makes a powder form, and typically on the episode, we will focus on a specific brand. But I think it depends on what your need is for vitamin E, what we're going to recommend. So if your horse clearly has some neurologic symptoms or some weakness in the back end, then the Elevate liquid is what I like. But if
it's what'll catch them up the fastest.
Once you've caught the horse up, I would go to the Ultra Cruise vitamin E powder. And then Suzanna had found a product that seemed economical.
Yeah, well, one of the page followers recommended Black Horse vitamin E, and when I looked it up, it was the same amount of D-alpha tocopherol per IU per serving. So
In the powder?
in the powder, yeah,
In the
Black
powder.
Horse.
So I haven't looked at compared price-wise, though.
It's a lot cheaper than
Ultra Cruise?
Elevate.
Oh, than Elevate. But Ultra Cruise is significantly cheaper. So you can just see what's available. But if you have a horse in a setting where it's a dry lot or you don't have much pasture and your horse is primarily getting forage from hay, or a commercial feed, because maybe it's a senior horse and it's getting a lot of soaked feed, you really, really, really need to look into supplementing your horse with vitamin E. And if you have a horse that's diagnosed with EPM, consider having a spinal tap done, because we've never done a spinal tap on a horse that ended up being positive for EPM, and that's pretty significant, because we're in an area where you would think we would encounter it a lot, but I think you get some misdiagnosis. So just think about that.
The saddest thing was when they were telling us the story about the Mustang that they put to sleep because it was so whoppingly EPM, and you and I looked at each other and we were like,
no vitamin E.
It was no vitamin E, and that horse had no vitamin E.
Yeah,
and they put it to sleep when they could have fixed it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't pull a spinal; it wasn't our horse, but based on the symptoms and what they did, and where the horse came from, I wouldn't euthanize a horse for presumed EPM without having done a spinal. So
do think about also, you can say, well, my horse is on pasture, so its vitamin E is fine, but really understand whether your pasture is actually really pretty good pasture, or are you walking out there and there's a whole lot of weeds mixed in with your pasture? Because because it's green.
So what I would say, the way you would define and know is your horse is on pasture. Is it meeting the nutritional needs? Does your horse look excellent and you're not giving it hay spring, summer, fall? Then you're probably fine. So at my house, I feed 0 hay and the horses look good spring, summer, fall. But if you are saying your horse is on pasture and you are feeding hay during this time to supplement, their pasture is not meeting the needs, So,
in my experience, horses with adequate vitamin E are always got that kind of shiny look to their coat in warmer months. So I've never had a horse that was adequate on vitamin E be dull coated.
So that said, we're going to move on to our horse of the month.
She's not a horse.
This is not even a horse this month. Her name is Pickles.
Pickles.
And we've had Pickles a couple of years.
Yes.
She came in. She's a little bit of a terrorist. She's a pony of the Americas.
She's a typical pony is what she is.
Yeah, and she's like 12'2". She's a little appy, as she would be as a POA.
But she loves Caitlin's kid.
I mean, yeah. So she's at Addy Cat Acres in Great Cacapon.
Are you have trouble with that word too?
I was going to call it Capicon. But it's Cacapon. Who names a place Cacapon.
Somebody who was laughing when they named it.
I mean, Cacapon. So, you can look up videos with her with Caitlin's little girl on Addy Cat Acres. And she's been kind of a little sass pop, but it seems like she's really doing well. I think she's maybe 7 or 8 years
Yeah,
old.
I don't know.
12-2, Pony of the Americas. Had a lot of time under saddle, a little bit of like ground driving. I don't,
She's a good lead line pony.
and Caitlin's little girl, I mean, she's maybe 4,
She's a 2015. What's that make her?
2015, so
9.
she's a 9 years old. She is got really a lot of pink around the eye, like an adopter would need to, I think, be cognizant of, like just her wearing a UV mask.
Caitlin keeps one on her.
But if you're looking for a small, sassy pony that could do all sorts of things with a kid who's confident, really enjoys.
Or she could make your kid confident.
Well,
She can make your kid learn to be confident.
she's a sassy pony, but like I think she's the right pony for a horse crazy kid who feels like, if it's like, you got the sawhorse and they're putting saddles on it, and they're just riding the sawhorse all over God's creation. Give them some lessons and get them Pickles, and it'll be fine. Caitlin hasn't mentioned actually anything bad the pony does. She's just a sassy pony.
She's just sassy.
She hasn't mentioned any bucking, no bolting, nothing like that. Just kind of a grouch, kind of hard to catch. But her little tiny girl seems to have a great time on her. So if you're interested, you can go to myrighthorse.org and look up Heart of Phoenix, or you can go to wvhorserescue.org and you'll be able to find our adoptable horses from there. I think she probably uses hashtag HopTeamPickles also on Facebook.
I think
and
so.
You would be able to find videos. And she sets an adoption fee on her. It's very reasonable. So if you're looking for a sassy pony, that's the one. It's time for the Ding-a-ling of the month. The Ding-a-ling of the month. And we talked about a lot of ding-a-lings before we decided on the specific ding-a-ling.
Yeah.
But whoever you are, man with a name that we don't remember, you are our featured winner of Ding-a-ling of the month. And it is not all horses who are
Untouched in
unhandled.
pasture. Unhandled.
Here's his words of wisdom. Not all unhandled horses in a pasture are feral.
Yes, that was it.
And maybe they're not. Tell us more about that. I actually asked, tell us more. And when he elaborated, it didn't necessarily tell us more. So Suzanna and I, we went to definitions.
Yes.
And essentially a horse living with attributes that are unhandled or become wild. I mean, is feral. To me, it was kind of a no-brainer. But
No. Let's read the official feral. Feral is existing in a natural state as animals or plants, not domesticated or cultivated.
Wild. But maybe try to. So this was in reference to the presumed Andalusian cross that we dealt with today. Pretty feral. Pretty feral. I mean, Nelson worked with him for a couple of hours, and he didn't even have a halter on at the end of it. So that was pretty feral. But I'll tell you what I think drives that kind of silly type of comment is that, one, the person doesn't have the skill set to know, and they probably do horses, and because they haven't dealt with unhandled horses, it kind of, I don't know, it pokes at an area they don't have the knowledge base to speak to. But then, also, people don't realize how very common it is to have and encounter feral horses. It's not rare. They're everywhere.
No, it's not rare.
It's exceedingly common. I wish it wasn't. It was like when we had the sketchy tilted feral stallions.
Oh, yeah.
They were like, oh no, it's not really that. And I'm like, oh my God, we get 20 of them a year. It's not unusual. So in the world that we live in, it's not rare. You have a lot of horses who don't have enough handling or any handling. So not unusual. If you have a horse that's never been handled and it's out in the field, I think you can call it feral. I mean, I'm going to call it feral. Now, if it's 6 months old and it's on its mother's side who's a handled horse, I'm not going to call that one feral.
No, that wouldn't be feral.
That's not feral. But otherwise, unhandled horse in the pasture, we're going to call it feral for the
Why
most
can't
part.
we just leave them feral?
Well,
that was kind of a ding-a-ling
that
comment
was
also.
There were some comments. Why can't it just stay wild? Well, horses are domestic. They're not wild. You have one breed of horse in Mongolia that is wild, and there are only 2,000 of them. And this gray horse out in Kentucky is not one of them. And
if he was, he'd be an awful tall one.
So very. But there are lots of reasons. If you have a horse that is feral, for one, you have to remember it is, no matter what, a domestic animal. Whether it's fully domesticated is irrelevant. It's not a wild animal. No more than if you have a feral dog colony pop up somewhere. These are domestic animals that are not receiving the care that they need. So if there's an emergency or there is a need to vet or give farrier care, you need to be able to offer those services. And the fact is, leaving a horse unhandled doesn't allow them to have the care that they need. So it's not something that we support. It's nothing we would do. Moving on to bad trainers.
It sounds like a TV show.
Bad horse trainers gone wild. So...
the thing is that some people celebrate bad trainers. Like, they share their videos and are like, he, look at this. I wonder how many likes and shares I can get from my bad trainer video.
Well, and
that's stupid.
Recently, someone shared something with me where a trainer bragged about having their bad training shared 4 times on an online forum that showcases bad horsemanship. And they were very proud
of being featured on there 4 times
for training poorly. And I saw one of the videos, and it was abuse, and it was psychotic, and the person should certainly not have horses in their care ever again until they find some way to learn skills. But it was so hard to watch. It's not uncommon, and you have all these people. I mean, there weren't a ton of comments in support, but you have these people there that are like, oh, you're doing a good job. Oh my gosh, I saw that. How dumb.
It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde horse.
It was that specific situation that people kept sending. It was really hard to watch. It was somebody local, and it was just...
It was hard to watch. It hurt my feelings because I believe in teaching a horse to tie, but that was bad. Everything about that was bad.
Well, and what it reminded me of was just a few months ago, there was a situation where a really abusive video surfaced in a different state affiliated with a rescue, and it was so preventable. And so there are trainers that do things. No trainer starts out knowing everything that they need to do, and it's just the teachability factor is so important. And you run into a lot of people who presumably are training, and they say, well, here's what this horse is doing. And if you give them answers, what they ultimately want to be said by the person who's allegedly a mentor is, this horse can't be fixed.
Because they don't want to admit that it's a hole in their own abilities.
Correct. They don't want to say, I missed something. I'm doing something wrong.
I don't know something. My method doesn't work for this horse.
And every trainer, you can actually be a bad trainer in one area and a good trainer in another. That's the thing. Like, everyone isn't meant to train feral horses. Or, I don't even know that I do think everyone isn't meant to train feral horses. But there are people who eventually could become a good trainer of a feral, but they're not there yet. And so maybe they have a skill set to really take a horse and finish it and take it into a discipline, but they don't have what they need to do a feral. Or maybe they have something where they could do the one feral but not another,
The
like,
trainers that frustrate me the worst are the ones that have a really good training method for a specific type of horse. And, like, say the 5 horses out of 7 fit in that box and the other 2 don't. They label the other 2 bad, unmanageable, or dangerous horses when it's just that they didn't fit in the box of their particular training method, which meant that they needed to learn more training methods so that they could do a wider amount of horses. But instead, they've labeled that horse bad, dangerous, worthless, in need of a bullet,
or like part of it is
broken.
that admit you don't want to put that in your training box and just say, I don't know enough to do it. Like, if you don't want to learn what you need to learn, instead of labeling the horse bad, instead of just, you can say, hey, I need to learn more and I'm going to, or hey, I'm not going to. But there's someone out there that can.
I like the niche that I have, and I'm not interested in jumping out of it.
Correct. And I think even that's fine.
That's
fine.
fine.
I think that's even great, because then you let people become experts. Nobody's going to be an expert in
all of them.
And so, as much as we talk about how we really love Nelson's approach, Nelson's approach is very specific to the troubled horse, the feral horse, the misunderstood horse, and that's where it is. If I wanted to create a dressage horse, I'm not going to want to. But if I did, that's not the trainer. Like, and he would never tell you he was. Like, he's not the trainer for a discipline in that way.
Well, I've had a lot of feral stallions in my barn that have been waiting to go to the ATFO or whatever, but there are some of them that I'm like, don't send that one to my barn because I can't deal with that one. And all feral stallions are dangerous, but there are subsets of feral stallions that I wouldn't want to have in my barn.
I think the one today, this horse,
I wouldn't want him in my barn.
I would not either. No. This horse is so willing to, like, come at you from the front and the back.
He'd definitely be a good herd defender.
He's just he's going to be tough. I do think he will be teachable, but it would not be someone who had a really heavy liberty focus. Would certainly not be who would take this horse and do well, or somebody who has a super inclination to only positive reinforcement. Like, that's not where this horse needs to be. But also not somebody who's wanting an introduction. Like, I've not done a feral, but I'm going to take this one. Like, no, this is not the one. Like, immediately no. So, I was thinking about the term, like, bad trainer, but, like, just trainers that they're not aligned with what they do well.
We turn down, we have multiple trainers that apply to work with us, and we turn some down.
I think we turn a lot down,
yeah,
really.
We turn a lot down.
And we give a fair number a chance. I will say I'm more apt to give them a chance, and often I wish I hadn't. But so I give them a chance, and then I'm like, ew, I shouldn't have done it. But I do believe people have to be able to make mistakes, and it's better that they make the mistake under Heart of Phoenix, where we can talk to them about it and give them a shot to have a support system. Yes, yeah. Like, give them a support system, and it's not just them out there with no accountability. If they're working with us, there's some accountability. So if I see something in someone where I think, you're not even kind of there yet, but maybe we can get you there, then let them make some mistakes and let them try. So, I'm fine with that, but
that's one of my favorite things about the Appalachian Trainer Face-Off, is because we don't just rope the trainers in so that we get something out of them. Like, we really want to help these people grow.
Well, I think we pick judges that way too.
Yes.
I really, when I talk to people about judging the ATFO,
your stomach? Your stomach wants to podcast. You reckon that'll show up?
Wouldn't that be something?
That'd be funny.
Sorry if you heard.
We're gonna have to name that. Myron got a little.
Myron
wanted to be heard.
A man. My stomach is not a man.
Manly growly.
No, it's Marion.
Whatever it was, it had Marion. A loud voice there for a minute.
Anyway, so, like, I really do. I try to find judges that really care about the trainer each trainer,
The
like as
growth
an
of the
individual,
trainer.
and then they care about like that trainer moving on and moving forward
Well,
and doing better.
we have trainers who've come back year after year, and they say one of their favorite things is to see how these people have grown over the past 3 or 4 years.
No, the judges, the
Judges,
judges,
judges. That's what I was
No,
trying to say.
several judges have said to me like how much they don't see that in general training, but they
Right.
see it at the ATFO,
The ATFO.
because that's cultivated. So, I want to believe even if I would see a video of you today and say you're a bad trainer, that you could certainly decide that's not where you're going to stay, and you could endeavor to become better. And if anybody ever hears this as a trainer, they're like, hey, I feel like I could become better. Like um we really really feel like we have resources. I think earlier even Nelson mentioned like being willing to be a person who would help someone improve. And I think different judges and ATFO feel that way, and different trainers. Like, nobody in the horse industry that cares about horses wants to leave people purposefully without
Stuck.
education and stuck. So you don't have to stay a bad trainer. You don't have to, but a lot of them want to. But I want to believe some of them don't, and I'm so hopeful. Hopeful, Tinia.
It's like Alcoholics Anonymous. The first step to recovery is admitting
Admitting
that
you
you
have a problem.
problem.
Hey, and then that one that ended up 4 times on bad trainers,
Yeah,
whatever.
that one has a
That
problem.
one didn't want to admit that they had a problem. So, anyway, I don't know where we'll come to you next month. I don't even think we have anything planned next month.
We're fairly random.
Yeah, but we'll be somewhere next month for a
Somewhere
seventh
next
episode. Maybe we'll have a guest.
I don't know. Guests seem to be hard. I don't
They
know
don't-
why.
like, what would
Are
we
we that intimidating?
We scared. We don't give them any time to talk.
Well, we would if they
I
sat in the middle of us.
would. If they just sat right here and held the phone and said, hey, I want to be part of this. But until then, you got Tinia.
And Suzanna.
That's it for Horses of Courses.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, happy anniversary. Thanks for my peanut butter.